it's happening. Cannot believe that I'm actually recording this podcast. I'm feeling a little bit now that I'm starting it, but something I've kind of always wanted to do when I felt like I was in a position to be able to do it. So now we are here. So today we're going to be touching base on something that's a little bit away from like fitness and nutrition, but like it does have a huge impact on those. So that's why I think it's important to talk about it, and that is the topic of breakups. So there's two little, I suppose, disclaimers or notes or things that I want to say first, and that is, number one, this is not a poor me podcast, and number two, this is not hate or disrespect against absolutely anyone. I have the utmost respect and so grateful for anyone that was in my life or is not in my life anymore. So there are two things I wanted to say, and the only reason for this podcast is because if I was in that position again, going through a breakup, and there was something I could listen to, or there was some resource there for me to listen to, it would be this podcast. So I'm kind of speaking to myself in a way of everything that I've learned over the last 2 years of how to kind of cope with it, and as an opportunity for anyone else who is going through a breakup or is like really struggling with it and not really knowing what to do. So hopefully this might help you. And even at that, like, I have a lot of people that start with me, and the reason that they started with me was because I've gone through a breakup, I want to get my life together. That can be a huge one of what people decide to do, and I want to touch on the pros and cons of doing something like that as well. So yeah, let's get into it. So I think just bringing it back to the start, I just want to get nice and comfy here. Hello to anyone watching on YouTube, hello to anyone watching on Spotify, but let's just take it back to the start, I suppose. Like, when obviously I was in a relationship, I was in my old job, and I think one thing I never really said, like, if anyone, like any OGs were following me on Instagram when I was making that transition during COVID from leaving my job to starting online coaching, like, I always talked about how much it was job, and I never talked about that there was a breakup in the mix of that as well. So I always talked about how like upset and sad my job made me, and everything was geared towards my job and 9 to 5. I was coming on stories talking about jobs, pensions, but I never ever touched on the other side of it, that I was going through a breakup, and that it was actually a mixture of the two of them together that were causing absolute hell. And that's when I decided to kind of make that push, and I just could never bring myself to come on and say something like that, because I didn't want it to be like a pity party or anything like that, and you don't want to come on and feel like you're moaning. And then I feel like that's the thing that like actually holds a lot of us back from grieving a relationship, because I just did not talk about it to anyone. If anyone asked me, am I okay, I'm just like, yeah. I nearly get angry at them, especially my mother. Like, if she came into my room, like, at the time I was on calls, and like some of the calls were really tough during COVID, and I'd be sitting in my room bawling my eyes out, and it wouldn't even be just from the people on the phone giving out to me about this, that and the other, and me having to fix everything for them, but like a breakup too. So like any time I come in, it's like, oh, like, Tasha, you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, like, it's just this call is after upsetting me. And like, I'd always brush it off, and if she asked me about it, I would just be like, I would get so angry, like I didn't want her to bring it up in conversation. I'd be like, why would I be upset? Like, that's just stupid, like, you just get on with it. But like, it's not that easy. And like, even like that, like, I was never really, like, I suppose, a relationship kind of gal. I was just like, I didn't really kind of want one. And that's when I saw, like, say, like, any of my friends, any of them going through a breakup, I just couldn't understand why they'd be so upset. I would always be like, just get on with it, like, just go live your life. Like, I don't get why you're still grieving. If they don't want to be with you, they don't want to be with you, move on. But it's not that easy. And I genuinely, like, and I even feel bad now, because I was that friend that was just like, just cop on. And then I went through it myself, and I was like, oh my god, now I'm not like acting like that. So I think you have yourself that headstrong, but you have to be real with yourself. It's not that easy, and there is kind of, a lot to it. So for me anyways, I went through a breakup just as COVID was kicking in. So I think like, going through a breakup is hard enough, but going through a breakup when COVID is kicking in is possibly the worst thing ever, because you couldn't go see anyone. I suppose you couldn't do that thing where you just have a fucking moment and like go on nights out for a week on end, which I suppose is a good thing. But yeah, you couldn't see your friends, you couldn't go talk to anyone, like you're just sitting at home, you're working from home, you're sitting in your bedroom all day, so you can imagine you're sitting there working for yourself and all you're doing is thinking, overthinking absolutely everything, and you're driving yourself off your absolute head. So yeah, it was really tough, and I just genuinely didn't know how to deal with it, because I thought I was, I suppose, like, you know, this person that would be like, oh, this is grand, like I'd never carry on like that after a breakup, but it does, like, I suppose, affect you, and I wasn't prepared that it was gonna, I suppose, affect me as much as it did. So I did not have a clue in the slightest of how to deal with it or what you do, and I'm like a closed book then as well, so I won't open up to anyone, like, or if the girls text me, like, I'm just like, yeah, I'm fine, and that's all I would ever do. So what happened then was, because I held myself back from talking to people so much, it was like a bottle inside me that was ready to explode. So I was extremely angry, snappy at everyone at home. They might say I'm like the animals, but I'm not, changed. So yeah, I was just getting really angry, and I just hate people bringing it up, and I just wanted to ignore the whole thing. And I think what happens as well is you get in your head that you're just like, oh, like, when will this stage just be over, where I can just be happy again? Like, when, and you're sitting there frustrated at that. I suppose you're grieving a future as well, like you're grieving a future that you thought you had and now it's not happening. So there's just so much going on. I think because I let it build up so much, it used to pour at me. Like, it would just be a day where you just sit in the bathroom crying on end for a whole day, wouldn't talk about it to anyone. I'd be like, right, I'm fine again, go again, same thing is happening, and it was just like this consistent cycle. And I was like, how am I going to break this? And it was like just really, really tough. So yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, you're grieving a future that you thought you were going to have, and then like the whole process, or feeling like, oh, I wish there was things I could have done differently. You're overthinking everything, and then I suppose like you're grieving the side of like your family as well. So obviously, say when you look at your family and like how much they really love that person as well, like, because they do become part of the family. And like, even for my mom, for example, like I was nearly like grieving for her then as well. So I was like, fuck's sake. So there was just like, you feel like you're grieving from all angles. But I think a big thing you have to remember for yourself, like, is, you know, it was your relationship, it's not your family's relationship, and you have to kind of hold that for yourself. I feel like I wanted to take a flow with this, and like I have a few notes written down because I just wanted the things that I kind of wanted to touch base on. But yeah, the big thing is, well, like, when you look at grief and grieving it, you have to accept that you might be grieving this for the rest of your life. Like, if you keep thinking that this magic day is going to come when you're going to be absolutely happy, and it might come, no point saying otherwise, but it could be actually something that you could just grieve for the rest of your days. So you have to accept that. And it's like, even just like to the extreme of like grieving a death, like that's something you will grieve about for the rest of your days, but you still have to remember that like you have a life to live, you have one life, and just because like you're maybe upset for an hour, like you still have a whole day ahead of you, you still have a whole life ahead of you. If you've got like a good healthy body, like you've a lot going for you, and you have to recognise that for yourself, that you can't sit frustrated thinking, like, wishing that this would all go away, this time of it would all go away and you're going to be fine again, because that's what I kept thinking. I was like, oh, you know, when I get going with this, that, and the other, I'm going to be fine again, I'm going to be happy again, and it wasn't coming. And I kept finding myself, like, I was like, oh my god, I was getting so angry at myself with how long my grieving process was going on. I'm like, why are you still crying over this? This is fucking ridiculous. Like, you're getting angry at yourself then as well. And that's when I had to hold back and just be like, Tashi, you genuinely just have to allow yourself to do this. Doesn't matter if it goes on for 3 years, doesn't matter if it goes on for 5 years, it doesn't matter if it goes on for 10 years. You just have to go through these motions, and that is okay. So I think that's a big one, is don't put a time frame on it. You have to allow that and accept that it might be forever, but that doesn't mean you can't live a good life. And yeah, like, that might never go away. And with that then as well, like you can learn something from it. Like you can learn at like maybe the standards you'd set for a new relationship and things like you want in a relationship, and it's important to kind of recognise that for yourself too. Big thing as well is don't rush into something else. Like you need time to actually heal and work on yourself, and I think by rushing into something else you're actually just like looking for comfort. Like that person could treat you like absolute shit and you will just stay there for the sake of comfort for having someone, and this is where you have to take time to like work on yourself, work like on your own independence, because that was a huge one for me. I became so dependent on other people, and I look back now and I genuinely didn't realise how bad I was, but like for absolutely everything I just like, even like things like going through an airport, like I never really kind of take notice, and this is just in general, like if I'm going with family or friends or whatever, I would just follow the crowd. I'd never work on my own independence because there was always someone else there, and like that is something you need to spend a bit of time working on for yourself. Big one then as well is tell people that you're broken up. Like just do it, get it out of the way, because that was a big one that I held back on doing, and you're just prolonging it for yourself. You're just prolonging the whole process for yourself by not telling people, because I remember people coming up to me and be like, oh, do you know, how's he getting on? And I'm like, oh yeah, grand. Like, what would you tell him I was asking for him? I was like, yeah, well, no bother. And I walk away and like don't say anything that we're not together anymore, because I actually wasn't able to say the words, but all I was doing was just prolonging the whole process. So I think that's a big one, is get it out of the way, because people aren't going to ask it in a second time. Like I was just leaving myself open for that same person to ask me again, and then I have to like go through it again. So just kind of get straight to it, even with family as well, because I know family can be a hard one, and I was not able to do it, so like I had held back on it for ages. Obviously they notice these things, they're not silly either, so you may as well just kind of say it. If it makes you upset, so be it. It's not something that, you know, you should hold yourself back on. Like allow yourself to be upset, because it is completely normal, which is something I actually just didn't let myself do. But yeah, and next thing as well is like don't label it as your identity. I wish I wrote these notes down a little bit more, but I just wanted to kind of delve into it. Like don't label a relationship as your identity, because it's not. And again, that's something I feel I was doing. Like you just label yourself as that person in that relationship, and then you put so much fear on yourself in terms of social media, how it's going to look on social media, how it's going to look everywhere across the board. So like you are your own person at the end of the day, and to be with someone, like they shouldn't make up your whole life. They should just add value to your life. So you should be your own person, you should be your own independence, and that person just adds value to your life. So that is something you always kind of have to keep in mind, to not like label a relationship as your sole identity, because at the end of the day you're absolutely not guaranteed anything in this world, and this is something you have to be prepared for as well. Like, you know, even if someone promises you everything and anything, like nothing is guaranteed. Like not even tomorrow is guaranteed for us. So like, you know, it's just something to kind of always keep in mind, so that you do work, even if you are in a relationship now, that you do work in your independence and have yourself prepared for anything. Like I said, we're just literally not guaranteed anything. So do work on those things now, whether you're in a relationship or you're out of a relationship, and work on your own independence. I suppose the other side of it then as well is, what do I have written down there? Yeah, don't be afraid to grieve. Like don't be afraid to be upset, even if you feel like, for me, even like, and this is the truth, like even like it had been a whole year since the breakup, and I was in Lanzarote, I moved to Lanzarote, had started my own like business, and I was like, oh, this is it now, like I'm really, really happy, la-di-da-da. And then I would still have days where I would break down solid, and this was a year later, like break down solid in shower, everywhere. I'm just like, oh my god, like and again getting frustrated at myself, like why am I still upset? I'm living in Spain, I'm working for myself, I'm doing everything I always wanted to do, why am I still upset? And again, you just have to allow yourself to grieve. Do not put a time limit on it. do reach out. That's what kind of gave me the push to start therapy, which made me feel really weird and uncomfortable about doing it. Even talking about all this now is really weird because it's something I hid so much, and I just didn't want to hide it anymore because I felt like I was the only person that does things like that. So I want anyone who is doing things like that to realise like you are not the only person that does this. So yeah, I started therapy as well, and that really helped me just kind of recognise a few things and like just reflect on a few things as well, which did help massively. What I would definitely advise as well, and this is possibly the hardest thing you'll ever do, but getting rid of them off social media, and that's not from a place of hate or a place of fuck you. It is literally just to allow yourself to try move on with your life and try do something with your life. And even for me, the way I done it, like I just texted them and said, look, this isn't me having a fuck you moment, this is literally just, it's the only thing I can do that's going to help me move on in some way, shape or form. Because like you have to be honest with yourself, you will go check whether you're a lad or a girl. Like this isn't a girl psycho thing, this is a lad thing as well. You will go check, like you will be constantly you're going to waste so much valuable time that you have at being your youngest self, checking, and like you have to realise whether they have moved on or they haven't moved on, or if they're on a night out or whatever they're doing, like that's none of your business anymore, you know. Like you can't hold on to that, or you can't, if you do see them with someone else, like what's that going to do for you? It's literally not going to change anything. Or if they're not with someone else, it's not going to change anything. So there's absolutely no point, and it is really, really hard. Don't get me wrong, as soon as I done it, I was like, fuck's sake, I shouldn't have done that. And you do kind of have all those moments, but you have to do these things as an act of self-worth. Like you are literally devaluing yourself. Like if someone doesn't want to be with you, you're devaluing yourself by, you know, thinking the possibility of making it work, because you're actually, you know, you're giving yourself so much lack of self-worth by constantly checking everything, doing everything. You're devaluing yourself so much. So you do have to do it as an act of self-care for yourself, and it is obviously hard, but like you will thank yourself for it when you start doing things that you kind of want to do with your life. And for me as well, like obviously, like I wasted so much time just sitting there crying, moping around, not really doing much, and that's when I was just like, you know what, fuck this shit, enough is enough. And that's when I started doing like all my courses, all my free time that like say would have been put into a relationship. I decided, you know what, now is the free time to put it into myself. Like let's make something of this. And that's when I decided to start like doing all my courses, looking into something that I genuinely wanted to do. Travel was always something that I wanted to do. Like I started actually becoming, I suppose, the person like I always wanted to be, but I held myself back from being. So I just learned like a lot of new things about myself then as well, and what I want to do. So yeah, started all the courses. That's when I started like my online coaching. That's when I moved to Spain. Like I started doing all the things that I really, really wanted to do, and like don't get me wrong, it was the best thing ever, but of course you're still going to have those bad days, you're still going to have those down days. So you can't get angry at the fact that you might be doing everything you want. You might hop on a plane, move to Bali, but it doesn't mean like everything is wiped and washed away. You will still have bad days, but you should not let that hold you back. Like you can still, what I like to do anyways, if I have a bad day, I'll allow myself to have it, but I will make sure, and I think I even said this before in another podcast or something, yeah, my last podcast actually, I will make sure I'm up the next day, I'm in the gym, I'm going for a walk, even if it's a case that tears are nearly coming out of my eyes in the gym, I will just make sure I'm there. I will do everything I possibly can to look after myself, and that is super, super important. Like you still need to pick yourself up and do the things you want to do with your life, and like that there's still going to be bad days, but it doesn't mean it's a bad life. And like you have to look at everyone you have around you in terms of everyone that is still in your life, or the potential for like new people that are going to come into your life as well. Like you really need to kind of start valuing all the things, and gratitude is a huge one. Like I just kept focusing on like how grateful I was to like hop on a plane by myself and go to Lanzarote, how grateful I was to like start my own business, how grateful I was to start talking on my stories, like doing everything that literally scared the life out of me, but all things that I wanted to do. So yeah, like a lot of things, I've managed to do a lot of things for myself which I need to be happy for, and I want, like, if you're in a position like that, start using your free time, figuring out, and it doesn't have to be like, you know, making this big transition of working for yourself. It can literally be anything. If you start like just something on the side for fun as a hobby, like if you're, I don't know, into clothes and sticking up clothes spam on Instagram, or painting. I actually love painting. Anything at all, like start doing things that really just fill your cup again, which is super important. And yeah, that is, I think I've touched base on everything I kind of wanted to touch base on. I'm just running through my list here now. This could have flown better, but I just kind of wanted to delve straight into it because I didn't really know kind of what way it was going to go. But yeah, from that then, and from that breakup, I just managed to be like, you know what, need to get my shit together, and that's when I started doing everything. And now, like, fast forward to today, like sitting in Bali, like doing things that I have literally dreamed of, which is absolutely unbelievable. And I'm grateful that like I didn't jump back into something else, that I allowed myself time to really heal and give myself that time. So yeah, that is my story in a nutshell. And like, to touch base on the side of people who like come to start online coaching because they've gone through a breakup, so they're like, oh yeah, I've gone through a breakup, I really want to start looking after myself, I want to look unbelievable. Like, don't lower your standards to look a certain way and start working out after a breakup in the hope that someone else is going to like you because you've lost a load of weight and you got, I don't know, whatever it is. Like, don't let that be the reason, the approach you take from after a breakup, because you're actually devaluing your self-worth there as well. Like, you have so much more to you than your body, so don't think, well, fuck them, I'm going to be in the best shape of my life and they're going to regret that now. Like, that's just the worst approach you could ever possibly take. You have so many more personality traits to you than that, and I really do think you're devaluing yourself and what you're actually worthy of in a relationship, and that's why you set these standards for yourself, like, you know, so that's something to keep in mind. Or you have people that they're like, oh yeah, I've gone through a breakup, I'm going to start working after myself, going to lose loads of weight, la-di-da, and then 2 months into online coaching, oh yeah, we've actually got back together, we've worked things out, I'm actually going to stop online coaching. And it's just like, you know, you base looking after yourself, you know, off not being in a relationship and not being with someone, and then when you're back with them, you stop looking after yourself, you stop looking after your health, you stop looking after your body. So this is a big home take, whether you're in a relationship or not. Like, that should not be the reason that you start looking after your body, that you start looking after your mind, that you start looking after your mental health, because as I said, we're not guaranteed anything. So if it's a case then that you broke up again and you're back doing all these mad things, like, do these things whether you're in a relationship or not. Like, do really look after yourself, look after your body. They are the most important things that you will ever have for the rest of your life, so they are the most important things that you should look after. So yeah, look, I'm going to kind of just wrap that up there, and I hope it did or does help anyone that's going through anything like that at the moment. And like, if you are, just do not be afraid to talk, and do not be afraid to feel like you're being annoying, because that's the way you do feel. You feel like you're being so annoying. You probably, like, that's what I was like, I must be the most annoying person in the world because I'm constantly upset about this. Like, this must be so annoying, like, you know. So don't feel like that. Like, you have to kind of allow yourself that time. Do reach out for help if anyone like does want to find me over a message or anything like that. Like, obviously I would always be more than happy to help in any way I can. So yeah, that is all. Let me know if this helped anyone. Like I said, the whole purpose was, if I was going through a breakup, I think it would, or like if I was back at that stage again and I was listening to someone say these things, I feel like I would just be like, oh Jesus, thank God I'm not the only oddball doing all these bad things. And it's even like uncomfortable to be able to come on and even say this here now. Like I said, it's something I did not talk about for a very long time, or I never actually opened up about it, because it's even like you feel like a little bit embarrassed as well. So just by spending that time to work on myself, I'm able to kind of have myself in that position now, and with the purpose and intention of helping people who may be going through the same thing, so that I might be able to bring them a few steps forward than I was, with knowing that this is a completely normal process. So yeah, that is all. If there's anything else anyone wants to see in the next few episodes, do let me know. And yeah, peace out and thanks for listening.